What is up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today we're joined by Angelina Bradley. What's up, Angelina?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here today.
It's good to see you again after Nashville. It's been a while, right? It's at, what was it, April?
It was March. It
Oh,
was March.
March. Oh, shit.
So you've been a little bit further.
Yep. Oh, wow.
Right when I was taking on my fat loss phase, so we can talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you on because I think it's awesome to see you, like, as a mom and business owner, still getting the results, right? And also sharing that with your clients. And I think that's a big one because a lot of people tend to think, like, yeah, I'm too busy or I have too much to do. They're kind of putting everything and everyone before their own health, not understanding that it's actually making it worse because you could show up better if you're actually healthy, right? But it's also easier said than done, I feel like. So I think it'd be cool to bring you on, talk about that because, and yes and no, right? But I want to
We
bring you on.
can get into it. I know what's holding them back.
We'll get into it. Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like you relate to people really well, of course. I mean, you are a mom, right? Sometimes I always feel like because I'm a dude, I mostly coach women. I will say mostly moms actually now. I'm still hearing it from a dude sometimes. It's like, "Ah, you don't understand, you know what I mean?" But I think they will when they hear your story too. But let's start with you first. Like, who are you? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I can definitely relate to all the moms out there, but I do think it's nice to be able to relate to your clients, but I also think that there's something to be said about one, like you walk the walk, right? So it's not like haven't been through your own trials and tribulations and you're a seasoned coach and you know the science, right? So you know how to coach your clients. And I think ultimately that's the most important thing when you're looking for a coach is like, do they understand where you're at and how to get you to where you want to be. That's ultimately most important because I've seen mom coaches not know anything. So just because they're a mom doesn't mean they're a good coach, right?
That's true.
But yeah, that being said, yeah, I'm a mom of two young boys. I had two kids in under 2 years. So that was quite an experience. The first kid I had was easy. I had it easy, I would say. And I was like, oh man, what is everyone complaining about?
Yeah, it's
And then
not
I
that
had
bad.
this ain't that bad. I'm like, oh, it's pretty easy. And then I had my second. And they always say that like there's always one kid that like gives you your mom card that's like testing you and and so that was my second one. Yeah, I had to, as far as like my fitness journey goes, like what shifts when you have kids, I don't think that things necessarily get harder for you. Okay. I think that you need to get smarter. So, where in your 20s, sure, you can drink and eat mostly whatever you want and go to sleep by 3 p.m. and run on 5 hours of sleep and stuff like that. And you can't do that anymore. But it's, again, I just think that it shifts. Like, you just have to be more intentional with where your time and energy goes now versus in your 20s. And so it's not necessarily that it's harder. I think it's just we have to be smarter, more intentional what we're doing. It's like less cardio, more strength training, less shitty eating, more protein, like just some intentional shifts. So I think that the hard part there really just comes from I think again it just comes from like awareness. I think most women just lack awareness of their current behaviors and habits. And so making that shift to be a healthy individual feels hard because it's just things that they're not used to doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, a lot of it's also just kind of thinking, okay, well, I actually can't get away with all that stuff anymore. I can't just sleep 5 hours and drink and do all of this stuff. Um, Especially if it's then, well, we're also trying to fast and also eat low carb and we're also doing a lot of cardio and now we feel like shit and it's just making it worse. Let me ask you this, like, was it your own like fitness journey that got you into coaching?
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. Yeah, so I lost my first pregnancy to a miscarriage. I was 11 weeks pregnant and I was obviously devastated. And so I was like I was working a dead end job at the time and I say dead end. It was a great job. But I was soul sucking to me. I was working a job that felt like I was crushing my soul on the daily. And so for a few weeks there, I was like drinking a lot and I was sad and didn't know what to do with myself. And then I realized I was like, well, I've got to turn this pain into purpose. This, this didn't happen to me because of anything that I did or there was something that I could change or anything like that. And I had to just realize that, I could take this situation as an opportunity to better myself because I wanted to get pregnant again. I wanted to have more babies. And if I was going to have more babies, well, of course I was going to have to take care of myself. Like, losing that first pregnancy, I think just really gave me an eye-opening experience to like, I have to take care of me in order to take care of these babies that aren't even here yet. And so I started pouring into, like I had been in strength training since high school and I was a collegiate athlete. But then after college, like many others could probably relate to, I kind of like, I would say kind of lost myself. Like I didn't know what to do after like not competing anymore and not being an athlete anymore. And so I was still strength training, but I would say I wasn't really being intentional with exercise or nutrition. And after that experience, that's when I really got into macro tracking and learned what that was. And yeah, really started getting intentional with weightlifting. And ultimately, I started sharing my experience online of like my loss with my miscarriage and getting back into the gym. And people were just like, oh my God, like you're so inspirational. Like, I'm so glad you're sharing. And that was really scary for me. I was never a social media person. I didn't want to share my story
Same.
with people.
100%.
Like I was not, I wasn't the Instagram girly. I didn't even have an Instagram at the time. And I started one just solely because it was bringing me connection. I was meeting other women who had either been through the same thing as me, as, losing a pregnancy or, also wanting to find strength in pain or strength just to, to get into like a healthy state. So kind of just took off from there after experiencing something like that. And I think that anyone who's listening can really take from my experience there because I see time and time and time again. Whereas like so my firm belief is always everything is happening for me. Okay. Whether it's losing my pregnancy or my sewer pipes in my house bursting and having to live in a hotel room for 36 days with two kids under two.
That sounds fun.
It was so fun.
Jesus.
Or finding out my kid has scoliosis. Like I could name 1,000 things that we've all been through, and it's not my life is harder than your life or your life is harder than my life, but it's always this belief, if you can hold on to it, that everything is happening for me. Instead of believing that like, oh, this is an obstacle, well now I have to quit. This happened, so now I have to quit, right? So just imagine if I decided like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna stop trying to get pregnant now because this one thing happened to me. My two beautiful babies wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I think
it's,
that's just as serious as like your health and fitness journey, right? If you're not taking it as seriously, like maybe that's the problem, but it's just as serious. Like you need to treat it as so.
yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that I didn't have like that big of like an eye-opening moment. I mean, for me, it was more like a one day I just looked in the mirror. I was like, I got to do something about this, you know? Like, I felt like crap. I was overweight. But still, like, I think to a certain extent, sometimes getting those, like, those massive, like, eye openers, I guess, can potentially be a good thing if at least we are able to turn it into something positive, right? Because that's the hard part, too. Because you need to be really mentally, like, resilient or strong, I feel like, to get through those things and actually grow from it. And that's probably the hard part. Anything like fitness related, to be honest with you. Like, that's the hard part. Like, we all go through shit, but it's actually being able to then say, okay, it sucks right now, but let me actually try to grow from this. But that's, if we can get to that point, we're fucking like unstoppable. But it's hard though.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's so important about, people like you and me in this space and being vulnerable and showing those sides of us is so important so that Gen Pop, just everyday people believe that like, hey, this is also possible for me because I don't have to be perfect and things don't have to be, like I don't need a Lambo to be happy or like whatever, we're thinking and seeing in fitness influencers with their big house. My house is so messy all the time. We can get into that too as far as priorities go, but like,
Yeah.
we're normal people, and normal people can be happy, healthy, and hot, okay? It's just like you need to know that like it's real, that it's a possibility for you to go through everyday stuff like loss. Okay, I have a client who's like losing her father right now. And yeah, that's really sad, and that could be really debilitating. That could be, energetically exhausting, but she's still showing up week after week, and that's a different kind of mental toughness that it takes to be able to do that. But I think that just goes to show that we can do hard things if you believe so. And that's ultimately
Absolutely.
what I feel like it comes down to with clients is like I can kind of tell off the bat, if a client is going to be really successful or not, in the way that they speak about themselves and the thoughts that they have about themselves, because ultimately the way that you think affects the way that you feel, it affects the actions that you take. And so, you know, I don't know. What do you tell yourself when you're going through a hard time, Johan?
Tough one. I do want to like bring one point up that you brought up, because we are also everyday people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes with the fitness space, it's almost like people, they want to make themselves look like this, like up here, look at me. But it's like, no, like we're just fucking normal people, who are also going through shit. But I mean, that's a good question. Fuck. I mean, I did go through a tough time. Basically, like second half of last year into like early this year, went through like long-term breakup and, just a lot of changes. And I kind of like lost myself in a way, because a big eye opener for me, let's just get real here. No, but a
We're gonna
moment
get
for
real
me was
fun
like,
on this podcast. You didn't even know.
I love this though. No, because I think it is important. For me, a big realization was, because I believe like if you're in a relationship, right, you should initially be happy on your own already, right? And then when that fell away, I was like, yo, I'm not happy. I've not been nurturing my friendships, right? I'm not going out and seeing my friends. All I do is work. And I'm sitting here in my now little room and I'm like, fuck, you know? Kind of like that feeling of like starting over again. And I took that pretty hard, to be honest with you. I wasn't doing that great for like the second half of last year into early this year. My whole sleep got messed up. That took a long time to fix, Now it's in a great place. Actually, sleep is amazing right now. Stress is good. I actually did write a post about the things that worked for me, and it's nothing flashy, nothing special. Like, I had to do a lot of journaling, a lot of talking with myself. It's funny too if I think about that, because if you were to ask me like maybe 5 to 10 years ago, I would have never thought I'd be meditating, journaling, those kind of things. And I think a lot of people probably still think it's kind of like the hippie stuff, but it works. You know what I mean? Like, we got to do that stuff. Or, go to therapy or something. That is also going to be a great option. But like a lot of self-development books, a lot of journaling, just talking to myself, you know what I mean? Actually make a point of like actually going to see my friends again. That was a big one. Making sure that I was doing the things that I already knew as a coach that I tell my clients every single week I should be doing, right? And now my sleep sucked, which was a big one. Like that was a hard one to fix, but it's all just stress related, right? But going back to my meal preps, having a meal plan, just eating healthy, training, like not letting that kind of fall, behind. Dialing in sleep, morning routines, and then over time, like slowly things got better and better. And I don't know, because it took a long time, but like just one day it was like, actually, you know what? Like I'm pretty fucking happy right now. You know what I mean? And as hard as the second half of last year was, I came out of that feeling way happier and stronger than I was before. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, oh shit. I've actually, because of this tough time, grown a whole lot. And I want to say like I've probably grown as a person the most this last year than like probably ever. You know what I mean? Which I'm super grateful for now. But that's also the hard part, like seeing that now and being like, you know what? In a way, it was kind of good for me. Which is weird to say, because you don't want to be fucking half depressed, but like it was good.
For you.
It's happening for me, absolutely. It was just one of those where, like, you can't just work. You can't like not nurture your friendships, and I was like, fuck, okay. I had to start over in a way a little bit, but like we're here and we're feeling great, and we're still growing every single day. So it's
I love that, like, the first thing that you said, like, wasn't the meal prep, okay? Or, like, the training. It was actually the connection part. is what you said. And I think that sometimes when we talk about your health and fitness journey, we're like fiber, protein, walk 10K steps. Like that sounds like great. Like, yeah, do those things. But I think that we forget that there's other pieces to our health, right? Like, yeah, if you're missing out on connections, real connection with people, like this is gonna feel hard. This journey is gonna feel really hard. And so, if you don't have somebody who understands, and I think this is where coaching comes into, a really key component here is that most people don't have the support. They don't have people who also prep their food or look at nutrition labels or care what they're eating, right? And so you fall into those easily bad habits. Whereas, like, if you can surround yourself, which it sounds like you were surrounding yourself with people that were like feeding your soul and and doing you good. And so that plays a really big component. If you are surrounded by people that don't lift you up, that aren't pushing you higher, this is funny actually. I was talking to my husband the other day. Don't let my friends hear this, but they were like, we were just like, we need
We need
we
better
need
friends.
we're like are like my husband is kind of like the go-to person. Like everyone asks him questions and like how to do this and what to do this, and he's like, where's my help? Like where's somebody I can look up to and and ask questions to and stuff. And so I think that's a really key point here is like you got to have somebody like a little bit ahead of you. It doesn't even need to be super ahead of you, 3 steps ahead of you that you can look up to, and aspire to be or learn from or respect, to keep you evolving.
Absolutely. I think the big part was even just being able to talk to people, because that was another one. I was like, yo, I'm not talking about stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm doing the journaling, but I also got to talk to people. Like, I call my friends and make sure that there's some support. Absolutely. It's so important because people always think like, no, I should just be able to figure this out on my own and willpower through it. But no, you need some support, like we all do. And a massive part of health is like that community aspect and having relationships and right, not being on your own. And of course, having people to discuss stuff with as well. What I thought was really cool, by the way, when we all met, so for the listener, like Angelina and I have the same mentor, as well as how many other people were there? Like 20, 30 other ones or whatever?
Yeah, about I
Like
think
a
about
massive group of coaches. Like we were all on one Airbnb. It was amazing. The cool thing there, I was like, because I, struggle with the DMs and those kind of things. Like we're all building businesses and we all have our little frustrations. Just how the listener is like, yo, I'm struggling with fiber or protein. Like we, as a business owner, also have things where we're like, fuck, I gotta do this, or I'm struggling with this. I'm getting annoyed. It was really nice to just be in a room with coaches like yourself, me, like, people at all different levels, people ahead of us, but also at the same level. Hearing people just talk like, yo, we're all actually going through the same shit. We're all having similar like self-limiting beliefs. We all have similar things that we struggle with. And sure, you might be stronger at certain points than others and the other way around. But it's going to be the same thing for like fitness stuff and nutrition and all that. So whether it's business or something else, nutrition, fitness, or like self-development, like we do need those people around us. I think it's super, super key. And I think because of all the shortcuts and the quick fixes online, I think the only real shortcut is actually that. It's like mentorship, guidance, and learning from someone else who's ahead of you, That's at least my opinion. Like, I think that's the actual only shortcut.
I totally agree with you. That is a really cool take on that actually, like relating it back to like quick fixes and stuff. That is the only shortcut is get around other people that are where you want to be because they're going to show you they're going to show you that like those limiting beliefs they're silly, right? They're going to show you like what you want is actually possible because they've either been through it or know somebody who's been through it, or has the pathway to get there or whatever. I know that like when I first started my business, again, I wasn't a social media person, but I first saw like I was looking at like I don't know if you know who like Kendall Strample is, but she was like the first like fit influencer that I ever saw. I was like, man, if this like 20 something year old can do this, like I can do this. And like I didn't start my business until I was about 29. And so when I saw that, I was like, what in the world? If she can, I can. Like, why not? right? And I think that that's kind of like the mentality that you need to have surrounding your health and fitness journey is why not? Why can't I be happy, healthy, and hot? Why the hell not? Why can't I be a mom and be fucking sexy? Why can't I be a mom and be in the best shape of my life? Why can't I be a mom and not feel so tired all the time like all my other friends are complaining about? I don't do that. You will not. I mean, sure, you'll hear me say I'm tired sometimes, but I'm not that person that like I'm not complaining all the time about how tired I am. And if those are the people that you are only have around you that just say how tired and how much they hate their job and complain about their kids and their husband and stuff, you're surrounded by the wrong kind of people because I promise you, while life is hard, it doesn't need to be that.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. I think you'll know a lot whether you're surrounded by the right people based on whether you feel refreshed and recharged or just drained after leaving that room, you know?
Yeah.
And I think this is a big, like, maybe like wake up call for a lot of people listening is like, we all have those kind of people that we know, right? Where we're like, well, it was kind of nice to see them, but all they did was complain. And I'm actually trying to better myself, but they're just eating crap. And, you know, I do think that's actually a hard part because I even see this with a lot of the women I coach in their 50s, 40s, 50s plus. They're so used to like certain, you know, wine nights, those kind of things, that they almost feel like weird or guilty or like ashamed of like being the healthy one. You know what I mean? And that's a big conversation piece that we have with clients. It's like, so how do we do this when, you know, I'm trying to be healthy, but they're all drinking and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to be like the boring person who gets left out, you know?
So I can speak to this from experience, and I can also speak to it from a client perspective. But this year, so I would consider myself I call myself a yes girl. So like I will say yes to anything, a party, an adventure, drinking, whatever. Like I'm a yes girl. I'm going to do all the things. And so in January, so I hired a coach right before Christmas. Talk about timing. You say there's never a right time. I was like, forget
There
that.
you
We're
go.
going to start right now in the middle of holidays. And in January, I went sober for 44 days. And that was to um, again, I've been just like alcohol has just always been around me. Like that was my environment. My mom drinks, I would say, pretty regularly. My family all drinks regularly. And so alcohol has always been a part of like all of our family events and every holiday and stuff. It's all revolved around alcohol. And so in January, because I hired this coach who is, I wouldn't say, she was a big proponent of being alcohol free. And so with her guidance, I went alcohol free for 44 days. And I mainly like, I didn't know what to really expect from the outcome. And more so like, I wanted to see how I felt and how my body responded and what it was like to go to social events sober and if I could do it. And the coolest part of that experience, Johan, was the fact that I realized that alcohol doesn't control me and that I can control the alcohol. Because if you're drinking on a regular basis, and I'm saying like every weekend you're drinking or you're having a glass of wine every night, the alcohol's controlling you. You're not able to say no, right? And so I think it goes really kind of hand in hand with food as well, is like you want to be able to control the food and not have the food control you. And so, like going through that experience, I just like I felt like I took my power back, right? I was like, okay, I can actually be sober in social situations. I went to my girlfriend's birthday party in the city where they were all drinking until 3 a.m. I stayed sober. It's actually so much fun because it was hilarious to watch everybody else stumble around hammered. And then I did, I think I did date night with my husband sober and like a few other big social events that like, really tested me. And it like forever changed my relationship with alcohol. So like now I significantly drink less. Not to say that I don't drink now, but I think that now like I have the ability to say no if it just doesn't serve me. I don't need to have one just because it's Saturday. And I think that's the biggest like discussion, that we could be having with our clients is just asking like, well, what does this do for you? You know, is it really enhancing the experience, or are you doing it just because you don't think that you can handle the social situation? You know what I'm saying? And then ultimately just looking at like, what do you want for yourself? You know, like, so in January is going through a big body recomp phase, and going alcohol free for 44 days like completely transformed the way that my body looked. So if you're in this place where you're truly uncomfortable in your body and you're tugging at your clothes and you're scared of what the scale says, I would say that, yeah, like taking a look at your relationship with alcohol is really super duper important, not only to your fat loss goals, but also to like your mood, right? Your mental health, your if you're having depression and anxiety, like that's not helping, right? And so I think it can be just even an empowering experience to see like, oh, you know, like let's test the waters. Let's go tonight without drinking. Let's go to girls' night and like, you know, order a mocktail. And I think you'll realize that you actually have a lot more control than you believe that you do around alcohol.
A lot more. It's funny too, because as you're talking about this, I'm like, I've had these conversations with my clients, you know? I think it's almost, I want to say like probably almost 10 people, actually mostly men, who I coach with. And we always talk about alcohol, right? So my clients go through a course and we talk about alcohol in a chapter. And I just objectively explain what it does. And I'm like, hey, I'm not going to tell you not to drink ever, but hey, this is what it does. I just want you to make a grown ass decision, right? With what we do and what we put in our bodies. Around the same time, I think, like, let's say, like, from maybe May ish on April, May, in a few check ins, like, people started to mention it. And they were like, hey, I want to actually try to go alcohol free for, you know, a month, whatever it is. Like, at one point, like, it was just like one after the other, right? They all said the same thing. They all said they feel way better, right? They wake up more refreshed, they have more energy, less anxiety, those kind of things, right? They're less puffy. And they noticed afterwards, like, yo, I kind of don't need it anymore. Like, I feel better if I don't drink. And every single one of them had a similar experience as you. Every single one of them said, I did it for a month. Someone else said, hey, you know what? It went really well. Let's do actually 2-3 months. Someone else actually just stuck with it. And they all said the same thing. In the beginning, it was a little bit weird, maybe. I had to get used to it. A little bit of peer pressure, especially if you go out with the dudes and, you know, you usually drink. And now they're just like, you know, I can have a drink if I want to, but most of the time I probably won't. And I think that's really cool because you got to feel better for it. And I think it's almost one of those where even if you tell someone, like, hey, what about just not drinking alcohol for a month? Or what about just not drinking caffeine for a month? Most people are going to be like, hell no. You know, are you crazy? You know? But I think if you have that response, like that's even more of a reason to actually give it a shot because I swear, like, it's such a good experience. It's such a good experience.
Well, it goes back to the control part, right? Like if you think that that's crazy, then that means that the alcohol and the caffeine is controlling you. And now we're out of control, right? Like, so it's definitely even more of a reason to try and go alcohol or
Yeah.
caffeine free because
Yeah.
you've got a dependency now at that point, right? And again, you just like you want to be the one that can say yes or no based on what you value. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. What I value is different than what you value and is also different than what all of your clients value, right? Like I've got some clients that, you know, I've got like a younger one. She's in college. She's like, yeah, I'm not giving up drinking. I'm like, fair enough. I didn't either when I was 20. Like, fair enough. So like, here's what we're going to do to try to combat, you know, what you're going through and trying to get to your goals, right? Here's what we can do. So sometimes it doesn't always look like completely removing alcohol, but it can look like just being more intentional with it. So after I went alcohol free, I did return to alcohol, but it was just more of like, okay, do I need to or do I want to? And so it kind of came down to more of like when I'm on vacation, like I go up north to the North Woods, Wisconsin, if anyone knows where that is, but it's like in the middle of nowhere up north in the US and there's nothing to do there. All they do is drink. They drink and they snowmobile and they ATV and like that and hunt. And so like that's all I do, right? So like I'm like, okay, yes, here's an instance in which I'm going to partake in alcohol, right? I'm on vacation. The whole point is for me to relax and indulge and do whatever I want to do. Gambled and rode snowmobiles and went hot tubs. Like so yeah, that makes sense. But like a kid's birthday party? Maybe not. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Probably not. Yeah.
why not? Yeah. So it's just like I think it's just being more intentional and deciding that it doesn't need to be an every event kind of thing and just asking yourself like what's important right now, today, or
Mm.
whenever.
Or not even just like the right now, even like, hey, how do I want to wake up tomorrow? Or how do I want to feel like next week, like when I check in about my progress? Because I am currently in a fat loss phase and I say this goal is so important to me, yet I'm drinking, 1,000 calories worth of alcohol over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
So I actually, when I was overweight, like that same year, I actually already quit drinking and smoking, but it was kind of similar. I was like, let me just, when I manage to quit smoking, I'll just quit drinking, might as well. And I did. And it was kind of indefinitely. And I did that for 13 years. So I was alcohol free for 13 years. So fun fact, Nashville is actually the first time I properly drank again in 13 years. So like, because,
Wild.
but
Bad influence.
no, but like,
Fitness coaches
but
are
that was
wild.
also a decision, like that was a decision. I was like, you know what, let me just have a glass, I was actually a little bit more than glass, but still, you know, since then I've had a little bit of alcohol a few times. One night recently I had maybe like 4 drinks, and even just those 4 made me feel like crap the next day. So now I'm in a place again where I'm like, you know what, I'll have a drink here and there, but I'm good, I don't really need it. And when we all meet again in Dallas later this year, I'll probably drink, but not too crazy, like not too much. I just don't need it right anymore. And I've noticed now that even with 4 drinks, I just feel like crap. So I'm good, like I'll have a
Yeah.
drink here and there.
I think that's important to note that like this is a journey. So like it is about constantly reevaluating yourself and where you want to go and what you want to do and who you want to be, right? And so like I mean, you went 13 years alcohol free and then, and now you've had a drink here and there and like that just means that we're human and we're just like
Yeah,
constantly evolving. And
yeah,
so we again like if you tapped in and decided, like, actually, it's not serving me at all, I'm going to go back to alcohol free, then cool, right? Like, then that would be fine. Or I want to have a drink whenever I want to here and there, like, also okay. And like, so I think the most important thing here is like try not to let other people's opinions dictate your own. You know what I'm saying? This is your journey. This is your life. And so, ultimately, if you're happy, that's the most important thing. So whether if you're getting like peer pressured by, family members or friends to drink and you're like, it's just not in alignment with me, right? That's when you need to have like that support system or somebody else to talk to and say like, no, actually it's okay. I was lucky enough, like I didn't really feel a whole lot of peer pressure. I thought I would from my husband actually.
oh, yeah, yeah,
Funny enough, I thought I would for my husband. It's not like he's a big drinker, but um, when we go do things, like, here and there, we'll have cocktails. And I thought I would feel a lot of pressure from him, maybe, but no, like not at all. He was like, cool. And actually, if I was like gonna pee, he was like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to have that. I'm like, oh, you're
yeah.
right.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's a big one. It's also just paying attention to like, hey, like is this actually important to me? Like, how do I actually feel? And it's even just that piece I think people just don't do. It's just that reflecting, Like I also did. I was like, I literally it was just 4 drinks and I felt like crap the next day. I was like, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It really isn't.
Yeah. And so you can reflect on that, right? And say, like, okay, I did this thing or I ate this thing. So if you want to really relate it back to food, I ate this thing. Okay, don't make yourself feel like shit for it. All right. It's already in the past. I ate it. Or like maybe I overate at dinner or like I binged at night or whatever. Most of us will fall into this self-sabotaging behavior where, okay, well, now I feel like a piece of shit, or like with the drinking, I feel like a piece of shit. So I'm going to keep doing things that make me feel like shit. And that's the problem. So it's not that you drank the 4 drinks. The problem is the aftermath, right? Now, what are we
100%.
going to do? Am I going to keep drinking or am I going to decide here and now that didn't make me feel good, so I'm not going to do that again? I'm going to be the big boy. I'm going to say, I'm not going to do that again and move on.
Absolutely.
And, don't hold the guilt and the shame. Like, let it go. Like what you did, leave it there and decide you've got that awareness now to make that choice moving forward. And I think that's the most important piece there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like sticking with food, it's like you literally have a chance every single day to just do a little bit better. Like that's all you need to really worry about is just like, let's focus on today. Yeah, maybe I felt like, let's say we overate a couple days ago. Okay, yeah, are we going to basically make the situation worse by beating ourselves up? Saying, I suck and I don't have it in me. Or just say, like, hey, let me actually just try to understand the scenario. Okay, so overate. What happened before? Like, how did I feel? Okay, so I was stressed. Okay, maybe we're going to look at stress. Actually, I barely ate throughout the day, barely had any fiber protein. Okay, now we know what we can do a little bit better today. Like, that's literally the key. Like, if you just do that and you continue to just reflect and review, then you'll figure it out over time. That's where that support comes in again too, because it's good to have someone over here who can basically be like, yo, actually, let's zoom out a little bit, slow down, like, calm down. Let's objectively look at what's happened and then try to figure it out for today and moving forward, you know?
Yeah, because most of us like are not very good at self-regulating.
No.
And so having that objective point of view to be like, actually, you didn't just like gain weight overnight, and so someone to just say like, hold up, wait a minute.
Yeah. And what I like too is that obviously, I mean, you're a coach. Were you a coach already when you got a coach or not?
Yes. Yeah. So
there you go.
I started coaching before I ever hired my first fitness coach.
There you go. Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, my first nutrition coach was like 1 or 2 years into coaching myself. But I want to kind of go back to that because obviously, like, as a coach, we understand, hey, we truly value that piece, having someone on your team, right? Let me ask you this, like, what was like the moment where you were like, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to just change it for now. Like, I want to lose the weight, I want to look better, etc.
Yeah. So after having the 2 kids in under 2 years, I was actually like, I worked out all 9 months, both pregnancies. I was able to like get back to like close near my pre-pregnancy weight with the second one. But when I stopped breastfeeding, I had gained 10 pounds, and that wasn't because of my hormones. It wasn't because of my cortisol or whatever somebody wants to tell you out there, or because I had kids and now I'm just bigger now and I have to weigh more or anything like that. It was purely because of lifestyle. So because when I was breastfeeding, and mind you, I had 2 boys, okay, so lots of food, okay, nourish these kids for an entire year. And so when I stopped breastfeeding, I kept up the same lifestyle habits. I wasn't moving as much. I was in the car. I was taking them to daycare. I was taking them to school. I was in carpool pickup lines. I was sitting more. I wasn't as intentional with my exercise. I was still snacking at night because I still felt that hunger. So I was eating more, but my body wasn't burning as many calories because I was no longer breastfeeding. And so that over time, I gained 10 pounds. And I didn't realize it until one day I saw myself in a wedding photo and was like, holy shit, what happened? And like many of you could probably relate to, you're like, whoa, what happened? And luckily I caught it. I mean, 10 pounds to some people can feel like a lot, right? And I wasn't fitting in my clothes and I felt uncomfortable. And so I had tried to diet on my own twice. And I once was like I was trying to like test out so in Dallas was in January or October of last year, last time.
Okay.
So our last mastermind was actually in like October. And so anyways, somebody had come on and talked about rapid fat loss. So so I had tried like a rapid fat loss protocol, and it worked for like 2 weeks, and I had like dropped like a weight relatively fast, and then I had like a health thing, so I stopped doing it. So I gained the weight back. So cool. All right, there. And then I tried to diet again. And I was just doing all of the wrong things. I was trying to just slash my calories before I had rebuilt the foundations, right? So eventually I was like, okay, I need somebody. Well, I'm taking care of everybody else. My 2 kids, my husband, my clients on my roster. I need somebody to take care of me because I'm not programming my workouts. I'm tracking inconsistently. Slashing my calories isn't working. And I feel like I'm in a hamster wheel. And so that was my moment. I was like, okay, not working. Even though I have helped dozens of women up until this point lose fat and keep it off, I couldn't do it for myself. And that's not like I don't think that was like a lack of willpower or a lack of knowing what to do. It just was I needed somebody to just say, hey, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, so that I could just make it really simple and easy for myself, right? I think most women are just making it way too complicated, and you need someone to just say, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do, and talk through it, obviously, because I think autonomy is really important along your fitness journey, but ultimately just making it really simple and here's how we're clarity and direction. Here's what we're
Yeah.
going to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
100%.
got back to the foundations, and like you said, it wasn't anything magic, it wasn't anything crazy, but I sat at maintenance for 3 months. We didn't cut like I wanted to go into a fat loss phase, and she's like, nope, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna build muscle, we're gonna body recomp, we're gonna stay at maintenance. I was eating 2,200 calories, working out 4 days a week. Walking was about 8K steps, I would say, nothing crazy, nothing too unattainable. And then, yeah, sleeping and water and stress related. And my body recomp was insane. I looked like a completely different person, and I didn't lose a pound. I was the exact same weight.
Yeah.
And
But
then
you lost body fat.
but I lost body fat. Yeah. So the scale.
Well, I wanted to point that out because
Yeah, good point.
I think a lot of women still just think dieting and they're almost afraid to eat more. I get that. They're conditioned almost to feel like that. You know, it's always been about eating less and less, especially women in their 50s, even more. I had a client in her 60s, same thing, you know. It's always been eating less. It's never been nourishing. It's never been fueling. It's never been weightlifting over cardio. That's for a lot of people the reason why they're where they're currently at. And even if they were to just say, hey, let's do 3 months of maintenance, or maybe a little bit higher, right? We're just pushing calories. It's going to fucking change so much. But I feel like that's a hard one for people to think because they come in, I want to lose fat. They expect weight loss. And then we're going to say the opposite. Let's actually eat more. Let's actually more protein, more weights. You know what I mean? It is a hard one, I think, for people to kind of fully understand unless they do it. Because every single person I've taken through a phase like that is like, yo, it's life-changing, like night and day.
It was even really hard for me mentally. I wanted to go into a fat loss phase. I had my mind was on that, and she was like, nope, we're not going to do that. And I was like, okay. And then I had to, and then I did go through my fat loss phase and successfully lost the 10 pounds. But then coming out of it was another mental game. And so I think, just again, that's why you have support there for somebody to say, like, just like talk you out of your mentee B, like stop fucking freaking out, because I was scared of going back up in my calories. I was like, I had kind of gotten into that diet mentality of like, well, if I eat again, I'm going to gain the weight again. And that's just not how your body works, And so, it had to have conversations around like, okay, it might go up a little bit because your glycogen is going to be restored and I'm going to hold on to a little bit more water. And so it may go up 1 or 2 pounds, and like, that's okay. Like, that's just going to be normal, and we got to be okay with that. But it's not about the scale and the weight. It's about how I look to myself, right? How I feel in my skin, how I feel in my clothes, and my muscles popping now. And these are muscles I never had before. And so, after 2 kids in 2 years, like, that feels really fucking good. And it doesn't matter that the scale is up, at that point, it doesn't matter. Having those conversations is really important, because the food, what do you want to call it? The scarcity around food is very real. Think you have to just eat as little as possible in order to maintain, or in order to get to those fat loss goals. But I've never felt or looked better in my life than when I have been well fed and have muscle mass on my body.
Did you do a diet at some point or no? Was it just the muscle gain and you just kind of maintained there?
No, so I did 3 months of maintenance. And then I did want to cut, because I was like, okay, body recomp was really cool to watch, like how it shifted and fat melted off. But at that point, like, I still had some like belly fat, and so my goals were still to cut. And so she's like, okay, I built the foundation. So I was tracking consistently. I was being very intentional with my lifting. I was lifting very heavy, lifting to failure, and just everything across the board is consistent, right? And so then basically I had earned at that point, right?
But then you can also go into like then you're actually at that point you actually can go into a phase like that. Like you're good to go from like a habit standpoint. Like your body's in a way better place. You have muscle to show. Like that's where you want to start the fat loss phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Whereas before, I wasn't. I wasn't in a good headspace. I wasn't consistent with anything. So it really didn't make sense to then deprive my body of nutrients, right? Because as soon as you go, and I think this is where people like forget that when you go into a fat loss phase, when you're eating less calories, okay, like over time things shift. Like I started to feel tired. I was fatigued and my period symptoms started worsening, and maybe your training gets affected and you're not lifting as heavy and you can't build muscle when you're in a calorie deficit. So I think people forget that piece, right? And so the diet isn't meant to be forever. It's meant to get in and then get back out, because you don't want to live in a calorie deficit, because that's where you feel like shit. Like, I mean, I didn't feel like crap the whole time. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But if you do that
If you
perpetually, if
stay
you're
there.
always dieting, yeah, if you stay there, you are going to feel like crap. And so we don't want to stay in a dieting phase. You want to cycle that out. So
Yeah,
I did it for 8 weeks.
100%.
I only did it for 8 weeks. I was like, I'm
There you
done.
go. Yeah,
Getting back to maintenance, I'm done.
that's great. I mean, but that's the best shit though, and that's how much people can learn from this. It's like, and it depends, of course, how much someone needs to lose, right? But if you
Very
do
much.
3 months of muscle gain and you recomp, you build muscle, you lose a little bit of body fat, which especially for beginners is really common, very much to be expected even. If you do that first and then do a shorter cut, the results will be better than just trying to just hammer fat loss for 4 months in a row right off the bat. Every
Mm-hmm.
single time. Like every single time you're going to get better results.
Honestly, with my clients, my clientele with being like busy moms, like I don't even, here's what we focus on. We focus on quality food. Okay. Like that switch right there, like huge difference just in the way that you feel, your mood, your energy levels, clearer skin, more energy to play with your kids. Like that right there makes a huge difference. Okay. If you're not seeing this scale move, I mean, at that point, it's at least affecting everything else in your life, right? And then walking more, because it's a stress reliever. So now you feel better because you're accomplishing something, right? Like, oh, I went for a walk today. Like that felt really good. Maybe I called a friend and got that connection piece in, right? Maybe I took my kids with me and now I got, two birds with one stone. And that's, I think, something to be said here too, is like your health and fitness doesn't always have to look like this rigid freaking plan. Okay, the perfect macros and the perfect training plan. Like it needs to include more fun. Like go bike riding with your kids, go play on the playground with your kids, go dancing. Like my husband and I started Latin dancing this year, which has been really cool. Like that's
Great. Yeah, that's cool.
movement, and that feeds the soul, it feeds the body. While I'm a big proponent of strength training, okay, I think everyone in the world needs to be doing it. I will say that adding in those fun pieces to your journey, I think makes it more fun. In my opinion, I'm an Enneagram 7. I don't know if you know what that is, but I protect my energy, and like I don't want anything to do with something that's not fun. So, like, if you're somebody that's like that, like you want to enjoy life and you don't want your fitness and health to be so rigid, well, like that's where that like playfulness gets to come from. Like, you can add those pieces. That's still exercise. And I think that that kind of gets forgotten.
Yeah. And I think we need to look at those kind of things too. Even other than movement and stuff, it's also just doing things you like and that bring you joy. Like that's the biggest part of stress management, is like actually doing stuff that makes you feel good. And I like that, going on a walk, but also even things like dancing, like so key. No, but that's great, absolutely. And also, of course, the strength training too, like over cardio, like way more important, right? So much more important. So what would you tell like a busy mom who's like listening to this, who's like, yeah, it sounds great, but I'm just too busy.
So it's just going to go to what I said in the beginning here. It's all about how you think and the way that you talk to yourself. Okay, I'm a mom of two young boys, 4 and 2 right now, and a business owner. Actually, 2 businesses right now. And so there's a lot on my plate. But I have never thought to myself, I'm too busy for this. I just don't think those thoughts, because it's not my reality, because I'm in charge of my reality. You're in charge of your reality. And so you are going to make time for the things that are important to you. So if you decide this is important to me, I want to feel like my best self, I want to model health to my kids, and you value those things, right? I think you have to sit down and really ask yourself, like, what do I value? I mean, I have heard from people sometimes, like, it just wasn't a priority for me. And that's okay. Okay, you can say that. You can say this is not a priority for me right now. Okay, then then that means something else is taking precedent and you value that thing more, and that's fine. I think work sometimes happens that way. People value their work so much that their health takes a back burner. Or, I guess let's relate this to family. You value your family so much that you put your health on the back burner, right? But then at that point you have to ask yourself, well, like, okay, I value my family, right? I value my family's health. So I lead by example. I do this with my clients. I do this with my kids. I lead by example. They're not going to learn by me talking at them. They're going to learn by me showing them how it's done. And so that's why I take bike rides with them, and I take them to the park, and we go for walks, and they help them. They cook with me, and they prep food with me. And that way they're involved, because if you value family, okay, then you get them involved in the process. My kids are 4 and 2, and they cut their own strawberries, and they think it's the coolest thing ever. It's like so much fun for them. Or like weighing my food. I when I meal prep, like I weigh all my food and package it, and they're like, Mommy, can I help you? So they're involved in the process with me. So now I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm taking care of my house so that I'm well fed this week, so that I can take care of them. But also now they're involved in the process where I'm modeling, what a well-nutritious, balanced meal looks like. And I'm also getting in that one-on-one time. I think it's like when you try to make your fitness journey like your own, like you isolate yourself from your family and you're like, oh, I got to eat all these things and do all these things by myself and take care of the family. Like, yeah, that you're always going to run into a roadblock. It's always going to feel hard. But when you start to involve your family in the process with you, well, then I think everything becomes a hell of a lot easier, because now it's not, well, I don't know. I can't watch TV with you because I got to go cook my food. Well, no, like let's all go cook the food.
Let's do it together. Yeah, go shopping. You're like 100%. I want to point out something you brought up, and that's that you are actually weighing your food when you're meal prepping with the kids there. Because this comes up in my check-ins quite often, especially in the beginning. Moms who say, I don't want to be tracking for my kid because let's say, I literally just had this conversation last week. She said, my daughter is, I think, like early teens, 12, 14 or something. And she's like, I kind of don't want to show her, right? Because I don't want this to create like an unhealthy relationship with food, or it's almost like people want to hide the fact, which even goes back to the thing we talked about with alcohol. It's almost like they kind of want to keep it separate. Well, I am like, let's own the fact that we're serious about our health and that we care about our family. And how about we just flip that and say, instead of me trying to hide the fact that I'm being healthy and trying to lose fat, you're the role model, like you said, We're going to involve people. We're going to say, hey, let's go shopping together. What if you guys pick the produce for the week, or the fruits, or the veggies? Or let's cut the veggies together, or let's cook together. And then translate those healthy habits. I think that's so much more important than thinking, oh, I got to hide the fact that I'm cutting. Sure, I do think it's a responsibility too, to where if people get too restrictive, okay, you're too obsessed with everything. Yeah, that's now on you. It's not about the tracking. I think that's on you now being like just a little too crazy about it. Because if we do it in a more fun way, we can turn this into something positive that will literally impact like your next generation. And I personally think that's more important, right?
Yeah. I have this reel that I made. I was taking progress photos.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, with my 2-year-old. Well, I have 2 actually. I was taking one with my 4-year-old, and then I took like a couple months later, 4 months later, and my 2-year-old happened to be there. I don't hide it, right? Like they're right there with me along this journey with me. And again, it goes back to how I talk about it. My kids will never hear me say, I'm too fat. They will never say, Mommy can't be in this picture because she's too ugly. Something that I heard when I was young is, and actually my mom does it to this day, and mind you, my best friend and has modeled a lot of great things. She's actually why I got into strength training, because she used to take me to a place called Women's Workout World. But something she still kind of does to this day is like, she'll pick herself apart in pictures. She's like, don't you dare post that. And that always got to me, because I was like, in my eyes, I'm looking at you and I think you're gorgeous. You're my mom, right? Like, I think you're great. This picture is great. But she's sitting there picking herself apart. And so that's something like my kids will never hear me say. I'm never going to pick myself apart. They don't hear me call myself fat or like, like pick out I don't say my mom, oh, my mom pooch, or, like when I talk about myself, I'm like, and I'm talking about my belly, I'm like, I made you here. Like, this is where you were made. And I talk about how strong I am. So like in that reel that I was talking about, I was like, is mommy so strong? And he's like, yeah. And he like, he does he flexes with me too. He's like, strong. And so I think that like that's what you're modeling there. So I'm not modeling how do I shrink myself so much so that like I'm not existent. I'm getting strong so that I can take up more space, so I can advocate for my kids, for their health, for their life, for their needs. Nobody benefits from a weak mother. And that's what happens when your health is deteriorating, when you try to hide in photos, when you can't keep up with your kids. Like, you that strong mom that I know that you want to be. And so those are just kind of the things that, I would think about when you're having these conversations with your kids. Is just like, yeah, how are you talking about your health and fitness journey? My kids are going to grow up loving the gym because I take them to the gym with me, and they go to the gym daycare. And I'm like, okay, mommy's going to go get strong. I don't go say mommy's going to go burn calories, right? And when it comes to the macro tracking, same thing. Like, how are you talking about it? I say, mommy wants to make sure she's nourishing herself. Mommy wants to make sure she's learning about food, right? And you can kind of like take them along with that journey and say like, yeah, like here's like 130 grams of protein so mommy can build muscle. Here's 80 grams of broccoli so that mommy gets her fiber in today, because these things help mommy feel good, instead of, oh, I'm tracking my food because I want to lose weight. Well, yeah. Well, now the conversation's in the wrong direction.
Yeah. I love that. That's just such a refreshing kind of take on that stuff, because we're just turning it into a positive, which I think we should. Because how is health not a positive thing? You know what I mean? Like, how is it not? Like, it can only be a good thing, in my opinion. And it's not obsessive. It's not obsessive to now say, you know what, like, we're going to work out consistently. We're going to go on walks. We're going to eat healthy. Like, no, it's a good thing,
I'd like to use the word intentional. So when you're tracking your food, instead of thinking that it's obsessive, think about it as intentionality. I'm being intentional about the food that I put in my mouth, so that way I make sure that I am building muscle and getting micronutrients in and fueling myself enough so that, again, that I feel good, right? In this day and age, with all the food noise, like, it's in all the processed food and the marketing and the media and all of that stuff, like it can be hard to, what do you call it? Intuitive eating, right? It can be hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of macro tracking being obsessive, I would say that it's being intentional and helping you learn what makes you feel good and how, and what health looks like for you.
For sure. Yeah, because the whole intuitive thing, like, it sounds good on paper, but like, you got to be intentional first before you can earn that, in my opinion. Because you can't start intuitively eating to get results. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. Because we got unhealthy and overweight because we intuitively ate. You know, which is the hard part to understand. But like, that is how we got fat. I'll just speak for myself, so no one gets butthurt. No. I got fat because I intuitively ate whatever the hell I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's how simple that is. So we can't start saying, oh, I'll just eat whatever. Like, no, like, we got to be intentional. And if we use a tool like tracking, cool. Like, I'm going to learn from it. And then afterwards, be better without tracking, because that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not going to track forever either. You know what I mean?
And it also just comes down to a science standpoint too. So like, you can't change behavior. Like, what you don't know, you don't know. right? So the first step to behavioral change is self-awareness. So if you want to change your eating habits, it's not just about listening to whether or not you're hungry. It's like, well, no, I have to, whether it's macro tracking or logging your food in a food journal or taking pictures with it, it's got to be managed somehow because I don't know that my clients aren't eating enough fiber if I don't know what they're eating. So that's how we make choices in any area of our life is like we decide like, oh, do I have money for that or don't I? Right? You look at your budget, you look at your finances, like where else is my money going? Okay, I do have money for that. It's just a self-awareness thing at that point.
Angelina, I think this has been amazing, and I want to be respectful of your time because
It was so
we're
much
just
fun.
over an hour. It's been a lot of fun. I feel like we should do this again because I feel like we could do another full hour
I could do another
and just
full
not
hour.
stop talking. But like I said, I'm sure you have stuff to do, and I'm actually going to go to bed pretty soon. It's 9:30 p.m., so
Oh my
I'm going to
gosh.
wrap it up for
Well,
today as well.
thanks for being flexible with me.
Of course, I changed the Google Calendar thing. I was like, fuck, I thought it was, but it's all good. No worries at all.
Oh,
That being
thanks.
said, where can people find you, and do you have anything else to share in terms of like updates or?
Yeah. Instagram, Facebook, Angelina Bradley. Well, Instagram is the Angelina Bradley, Facebook, Angelina Bradley. Yeah, come over, be friends. I would love to connect with anybody. And my door's always open. I think that sometimes people think, like they're scared to reach out or they're going to get a robot with a lot of these accounts now. Whether it's me or Johan or whatever, like, don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out like if you're experiencing something or want to be educated on something because again, what we said in the beginning was that you got to get yourself in rooms and around people who get you and get where you want to be and whether that's just in a companionship or in a mentorship or whatever, I've made really good amazing friends like now with Johan online. And it can lead to bigger and better things and so make those connections, whether it's online or in person because they can make all the difference.
We'll make sure to link everything in the show notes. And to our listener, we'll be back next week. I'll talk to you soon.